Hey everybody. So I want to take a few minutes to explain the course project to you. I know it can be overwhelming, to learn right at the start of a course that there is a big project that is worth, half of your grade. And, you know, even though you know that it's got, different parts to it, that you'll be working on it, in parts, not all at once, that, it can still be a little overwhelming and unsettling if you really don't know what the project is, what it all entails, what the big picture is. So I want to take some time to explain it to you here in week one, because we will start working on it this week. And I want you to go into project part one with the big picture in mind. Let's go ahead and look here at the course project overview. So the course project for this class is to write a well-developed, well-researched, with at least 3 to 4 sources, properly cited and appropriately formatted, which means APA format, research paper, roughly 3 or 4 pages in length, not including the title page or reference page. So that is 3 to 4 pages of essay, research paper. From introductory paragraph to concluding paragraph should be 3 to 4 pages, double-spaced. You will use at least 3 sources, and it will be in APA format, and you will be expected to have everything properly formatted, including your citations and your references page. That is what you'll be working on. It's worth 50% of your overall grade, and it is broken down into 4 parts so that you can tackle each section as we learn about specific aspects of essay writing and research. You will receive separate assignment sheets for each project part. So, you don't have to memorize anything that's here in this overview. Project part 1 will have its own assignment sheet, its own set of instructions. Project part 2 will, part 3 and part 4. So it's all part of the same project, but each part will come with its own set of instructions and explanation. Okay. You have to submit each project part to pass the course, because you have to submit each project part to even access the next project part. So you don't want to fall behind on this. And one way I find that helps is to go through each of the project parts a little bit here at the beginning, so that you'll have an idea of what you'll be working on in each part. So project part 1 is choosing your topic, engaging with that topic, and creating sort of a research plan about it. It's not going to seem like a plan. So I will give you a list of topics to choose from. You will select your topic, and then there will be some pre-writing that you'll do. You'll do a little pre-write to generate some ideas about your topic, things you already know about your topic, why you're interested in your topic, things you want to know about your topic, right? Any experience you already have with your topic. And that free write then will help you to generate your ideas and narrow your focus, so that you can start thinking about exactly where you want to take your research paper. All right. Then you're going to answer some questions about your topic, very general questions like, why did you choose it? Why do you care about this topic? Who else cares about this topic? What would you like to accomplish by doing a research paper on this topic? Just very general questions, again, so that you are engaging with that topic right from the beginning, generating as many ideas and thoughts about it as possible. All right. There will also be a section in project part 1 where you are given the opportunity to express any concerns or worries that you have about the course project, not your topic, about the project. It asks me questions, that sort of thing. But for the most part, project part 1 is all about choosing one of the topics that from the list and then engaging with that topic. If you look at the topics and you really don't want to write about any of them, reach out to me and maybe we can agree on an alternative topic for you. I do think, though, that most students find at least 1 or 2 topics from the list that they are really interested in. But, you know, if that's not the case for you, reach out to me and we'll see what we can do. Okay, project part 1 is assigned here in week 1, right? You'll have to go through the lessons in week 1 in order to access project part 1, but once you do, you will have access to the instructions and then you can see the topics and begin working on it. It's due at the end of week 1, Sunday night, just like all the week 1 assignments are. I will review your submission during week 2 and then give you feedback as you start thinking about project part 2, right? A lot of my feedback is really based on my experience with this course project in previous terms and certain issues that have become obstacles for some students with that who chose that same topic. Just some sort of advice to get you started in the right direction right from the get-go. So the feedback is super helpful. So I will be doing that during week 2. Project part 1 is worth 25 points. And pretty much, you know, if you complete project part 1 in full and submit it on time, you'll get the 25 points. There's no right or wrong answers to project part 1, but it does have to be completed in full. So if you leave a section blank, you're not going to receive the full 25 points, and you're going to have to resubmit with that section completed in order to get full points and be able to move on to the next project part. Right? Project part 2 is coming up with your working thesis, your main points, and your sources. So when I give you my feedback on project part 1, which you'll get by the end of week 2, from there on, you need to start looking for your sources, because here in project part 2, you have to list your sources and describe each one of them. The first thing you'll do is come up with your working thesis statement. And if you don't know what that means, you will by the time we get to project part 2. You will list your main points, and then you will list your sources. Remember, you have to have at least 3. For each source, you will provide the APA reference entry for that source and a brief description of each source and how you plan on using it in your essay. Like, what main point does it go with? What is the information that you think is going to be helpful in your essay, right? And if you don't know how to do an APA reference entry yet, you will by the time we get to project part 2, okay? There are release conditions associated with project part 2. I will send out reminders, but you can also refer to the release conditions list under getting started, right? It'll be due by the end of week 4. I will review them during week 5 and give you feedback, right? And hopefully that means you will be free to move on and start thinking about project part 3. Again, project part 2 also worth 25 points. Again, you know, the only sort of right or wrong thing is if you don't really have a good working thesis statement, if I don't understand your main points, if you don't have the correct reference entry for a source, you will get points deducted and be required to fix those issues. I will also give you sort of general feedback as well, like you might want to think about putting the main points in this order instead, or are you sure this source, is a valid source for your essay? It looks like this is a pretty old source, or it looks like, the research on this was done in a completely different country. Does it really still apply to how things are done here in the US? So my feedback will come in two parts. So if there's something wrong with what you have submitted for project part 2, you'll get partial credit and be asked to resubmit it with those issues fixed. If you did not have any issues, or once you fix your issues, then I will provide you with sort of my advice at that point, right? Once you have received full points on project part 2 and read my feedback, then you want to turn an eye towards project part 3, which will come in week 6, which is the rough draft, right? Now, obviously there are some release conditions associated with project part 3. And once you have achieved those release conditions, you will have access to project part 3. But there will also be in the instructions a list of separate requirements that you must have in place before I will accept project part 3. Things like having a correct title page, having the page numbers placed correctly, making sure that you have citations, making sure that you have a reference page in the correct spot with the correct formatting. If you try to submit your rough draft and it's missing any of those elements, I will give you a 0 and tell you to try again. I mean, I'll tell you what you need to fix, but so there are release conditions for project part 3 in order to access it, but then there are also submission requirements for project part 3 that you have to make sure are there before I will accept it. All right. And it is a rough draft. So even though there are, certain requirements that you got to make sure are in place before I will even accept it, the essay itself is a rough draft. The more complete it is, the more thorough it is, the more feedback you'll get from me. And I will give you very detailed feedback on it. Very detailed feedback. And then you'll use that feedback to help make changes and revise the draft. It'll be due at the end of week 6. I will review them during week 7. During week 7, you will also be sending your draft to one of your classmates, and that classmate will conduct a peer review on your draft. That means that another one of your classmates will be sending you their draft, and you will complete a peer review for them. So it's really important that you try to have that rough draft ready and submitted by the end of week 6 or like the first couple days of week 7, so that I have time to read your rough draft and give you my detailed feedback, but also so that everyone is able to exchange drafts and complete the peer review assignment, right? And that a peer review is a normal assignment, falls under the assignments category, not the course project grading category. So it is associated with your research paper, but it's not a part of the project, right? And that'll get explained in a separate assignment in week 7. But project part 3 is worth 25 points, and pretty much if you submit it and you have the submission requirements checked off and I accept it, as long as it's not plagiarized, you will get your 25 points. If there are any incidences of plagiarism in your rough draft, you will receive a 0 and be asked to redo it. Right? But as long as you have followed all of the lessons that we've learned up until that point, how to do research effectively, how to incorporate sources, how to cite your sources, then, as long as you've done those things, you'll get the 25 points for the rough draft. Okay. Once you get my feedback on your rough draft at the end of week 7 or by the end of week 7, then you need to start using that feedback to make changes, to make revisions, so that you can then finish up project part 4, which is the final draft of the research paper. It will be assigned in week 8. It will be due the Wednesday night of week 9. If you get it submitted by the Friday of week 9, I will still count it as on time. If you submit it Saturday of week 9, there is a 10% reduction in points off of your final draft. If you submit it Sunday of week 9, there is a 20% reduction on your final draft. And if you submit it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of week 10, I won't accept it and you'll receive a 0 and likely fail the class, unless you and I have made arrangements prior to that. The final draft will be graded formally. There will be a rubric that I use to assess different components of the essay. Your basic essay writing, do you have an introductory paragraph with a strong thesis statement? Do you have well-developed body paragraphs? Do those body paragraphs utilize transitional topic sentences? Have you supported each topic of each paragraph? Do you have a concluding paragraph that does its job? Right? All those things, grammar and mechanics, spelling. Then the research component. Is it in APA format? Is the title page correct? Does the header have the page number in the right spot? Is your first page of essay correct? Is the title where it's supposed to be? Is it double spaced? Have you used the correct font style and font size? Do you have the correct margin? Do you have citations every time you use a source? Do your citations match up with your reference entries and vice versa? Is your references page where it's supposed to be? Is the page formatted correctly? Is each reference entry formatted correctly? A lot. So using the lessons throughout the term, really learning about APA format and how to use sources effectively, using my feedback on every project part, especially project part 3, making these revisions for the final draft will help ensure that you are scoring high on that rubric and not getting a poor score for the final draft. Because remember, the final draft, project part 4, is for 60% of the 50% that the whole course project is worth. Okay, but that is it. That's basically what you'll be doing. It's a research paper within APA format with at least 3 sources used. Every project part has its own set of instructions that'll be explained in detail, and it helps take you from choosing your topic and narrowing your focus to then coming up with your thesis statement, your main points, and your sources, nailing down those details, then taking the next step and writing the rough draft, getting feedback to make revisions to submit the final draft. So that's how the project parts sort of build on each other. And along the way, in between each project part, we will be learning about essay basics, research, and APA format. Right? Okay. So that's the course project overview. If you have any really big burning questions, go ahead and reach out. It's still kind of an overwhelming prospect, so I want to make sure everyone feels good about it from the get-go. I would maybe though wait until you get to project part 1 this week. And then if those questions are still there then definitely reach out. But I feel like, you know, most questions that students have after watching this video and looking at the overview, a lot of them get answered once they get into project part 1. Right, so just keep that in mind. But I am here if you do have questions. Otherwise, you know, guys are free to move on to the next thing.